Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to take a look at a brand new Rebor release, and this may be one of their most exciting releases ever, as we have ourselves the Deinosuchus, and we have both different variants of this particular release, which is something I always try to do when it comes to the Rebor product, because they usually release a pretty good amount of color schemes with most of their figures, and this time we again have two different variants. Although, looking at the two, I'm going to go ahead and say right now, I think my favorite would be Swamp, but we'll have to wait until we actually take a look at them to really, truly tell. But as far as the box art goes, you can see it's pretty much what you would expect. We've got a nice image of the Deinosuchus. We also have the carcass of the dinosaur, as well as the image there of the Deinosuchus with the head of the dinosaur there in its mouth. That very poor, unfortunate Appalachiosaurus. But here on the back, you can again basically see a promotional shot in a way for the other variant, which we actually have right here. And I would imagine is probably the exact same thing here for, yep, exactly, for the back of this variant, you see the other variant. So they do that just to let you know that there is a different version out there. And we also have the Poor Twisted Me, which is a drowned Appalachiosaurus. So we now know how that one died. I guess it unfortunately had drowned, and our Deinosuchus had taken advantage of that and, scored itself a meal. So that's pretty cool. Nothing else really going on. We normally have like that box where the back has all the little mini boxes to show us all the other Rebor releases. This time we don't, so that's very interesting to see that they've switched it up a little bit with this. But I'm really excited to take a look at these, so let's pop these boxes open and check them out. So before I even bring them in, I just want to say, wow, these things are much larger than I was expecting them to be. But first of all, we have the deceased Appalachiosaurus here. You can see we have both different versions. This is from the swamp variant. This is from the estuary variant. So we've got, again, a slight difference in coloration. The sculpt is the same, but the colors are just slightly different. Of course, we'll take a look at them as we go here. But then here is our quite massive Deinosuchus, and look at how huge that is. That is, again, much larger than I was expecting. I mean, it's 1/35th scale according to Rebor, so you would think it would be pretty big for being a Deinosuchus. It's got to be huge, but man, that thing is really impressive, and it's also really beautifully done when it comes to the paintwork. Of course, the sculpt is great. We've been looking at it for quite a while now as far as, the images that Rebor has been teasing us with, but you never know exactly how good a paint job is going to look on a figure or a model until you actually see it in hand. That's the only way to truly tell how nice it will really look, and that is the estuary variant right there. And then we've also got the swamp variant. Now, I absolutely think that the swamp variant is my favorite version. I think it just looks super, super nice, but they really both are very impressive. And if we just kind of get a better look at them here, you can see that they honestly look like straight up living, breathing creatures here before me. And in fact, I fully intend on messing with my family with these, because I'm definitely going to go and tell my daughter it's a real, crocodile, I guess, in this instance, and then see what she does. But again, they look super, super impressive here. And I was really blown away with the recent Triceratops, but these are even better than the Triceratops. At that time, I thought, man, I don't know if it can get better from Rebor than those Triceratops. These Deinosuchus, especially when it comes to their paint jobs, absolutely are the top of the line when it comes to Rebor, in my opinion. So let's jump to a closer look at both of these right now. So we will begin with my favorite, again, my favorite of the two, which is the swamp variant, and man, is that ever beautiful. They really, really knocked this one out of the park, like in the most perfect way. This is easily one of the absolute most gorgeous models that I have ever seen in my entire life. So straight away, looking at the entire head sculpt, you can see some really nice looking texturing to the skin throughout, as well as phenomenal paintwork. And on top of the incredibly nice looking paintwork, we have a nice dark wash, which highlights the detailing in a very realistic way, making it look again as lifelike and as realistic as it can possibly get. On top of that, we have a very nice kind of a satin finish for it, because again, you want it to have that sort of wet look, as it would probably be hanging out in a body of water waiting for its next meal, and apparently finding a drowned Appalachiosaurus. But you can see that the entire thing again has that really nice satin finish, so it just shines very nicely and has that genuine wet look to it. The coloration again is phenomenal. You can see lots of really nice color. You can see some lighter tones running along the upper part of the jawline. You can also see some beautiful greens. Then you've got blacks. And it's all applied so realistically with an airbrush, and then they've given it that nice dark wash, which just makes everything tied together perfectly. You can see that same type of coloration here for the lower jaw. As we lead back, we have that variation of green, and we transition to some lighter tones here for the lower jaw. You can also actually see within the greens variation of green, because you can see lighter and darker shades of green throughout, which help to, again, give it an incredibly realistic appearance. And I normally am not a huge fan of golden eyes on Rebor products. I know they like to use the golden eye thing. I just feel like it never usually looks all that realistic, but in this instance, that golden eye just pops so nicely. And just look at how nice that stands out. Like, it really shines up there. So they definitely did a good job choosing the golden coloration for the eye this time around. I'm, again, not normally a big fan of that gold eye look, but that is just absolutely beautiful when it comes to the coloration and placement of the eye. Just perfect paintwork. We also have an articulated jaw for the Deinosuchus, so we can get that open quite nice and wide. You can see the teeth all have that classic Rebor look to them as far as the realism aspect goes, where they kind of have that almost sort of like a slightly translucent type of a look to them, making them look as realistic as it could possibly get when it comes to teeth. And you can see that same thing here for the lower jaw. Although I will say, like, they look really good up here on the upper jaw. The lower jaw, maybe like, oh, well, we're losing focus, maybe like a little wash or something on them could have helped and make them look just a little bit more realistic, because actually looking at them here now on the lower jaw, I feel like they might just be a little bit too clean looking, whereas maybe a dark wash or like some sort of like a brownish wash could have probably highlighted the teeth in a little bit more of a realistic way. But it still looks really good, and you can definitely see again that we have a nice glossy look to the inside of the mouth, as well as, of course, on the teeth. You can see variation of color there for the inside of the mouth. Nice wash has been applied in there as well. And if we take a look here at the inside of the mouth on the upper side, man, again, that is just top-notch detailing everywhere. It really doesn't get much more realistic than that. And I like that they've added in variation of color, even for the inside of the mouth. You can see like some light, almost like slight yellowish tones for the upper side, but then you see like pinkish tones for the lower jaw, and again another area of that almost like yellowish brown type of a tone right there. Insanely realistic looking inside of the mouth for the Deinosuchus, and that articulated jaw works very nicely. Again, you can open it to different distances and leave it pretty much wherever you want, and it sits there very nicely. If you take a look over here, again, you can see how incredible the paintwork is, as well as how nice that eye stands out. Easily one of the absolute most impressive models I've ever seen. There's no doubt about it. As you start to move back here a little bit further into the body of our Deinosuchus, you can see some bulkiness here to the neck, as well as some nice scoots and stuff moving all through the course of the Deinosuchus. And you also again continue to see the variations of greens as well as blacks kind of spotting and designing here throughout the course of the Deinosuchus. And as you lead up here to the top of the animal, you can again see that very heavily armored sort of a look, the very tough, rough and rugged looking texturing to the skin. And again, the detailing is brought out so nicely with the use of that dark wash. I really hope Rebor continues to use dark washes on their products like they are like this, because it just makes the detail shine so nicely. As you move down here to the side leading out into the front leg, you again have more really nice looking scale detail leading out here, more nice color variation. You've got the toes sculpted very nicely, spread apart, and the nails as well have a very realistic appearance to them. They also have a nice shine to them, again giving that very realistic shine like you would expect to see. And even just the positioning of the foot, just it has life to it. You can see the toes and the positioning of the toes. Like, it's not generic with the way it's sitting there. It genuinely looks like it could be the positioning of a living animal, maybe just relaxing or something right there. And then as you lead up here, you start to see more of that black and stuff moving through the back, as well as, again, the variations of greens and, of course, those large heavily armored sort of scoots running along the back. And then you get some really nice looking scale detail that just pops in the most beautiful way possible here on the side of the animal. You can also see variation of color again when it comes to greens, as well as some browns here on the side. And then as you move down, you transition to kind of like an off-white. Again, that dark wash is applied to perfection. You can even see like the stomach region here kind of sucked in a little bit right there. That's pretty cool. And then as you move up here, again, you continue to move along the course of the Deinosuchus. You can see the rear leg as well looks really good. Again, that paintwork is absolutely perfect. Like, it just doesn't get more realistic and lifelike than the paintwork that I see on this. As you move down, you again have a very nice looking rear foot sculpt as well. Nice looking nails as well, again with that sort of translucent type of a look. Looks to be like the same type of material they use for the teeth. They are, again, included here on the nails. And then as you lead back out here into the tail, there actually is a seam here where the tail is connected, but it's actually applied so nicely you almost don't even notice it. Like, look at that. Luckily for, a creature like this, an animal like this, there's like sort of like, divots in between each set of those scutes, so the tail applies in a really nice natural way where the seam doesn't stand out very much, not like you would see on, like the T-Rex or something like that, where it's a little bit more obvious that there's a seam. The seam definitely blends nicer on the Deinosuchus. And then as you continue to move out, we get this really nice kind of a lighter green leading out into the tail. Again, you have that classic sort of a scute-like look moving out as far as those larger scales. You have more of the black and stuff here designing through, and again, a really smooth transition to the lighter tone of the underside, and it kind of starts to blend together when it comes to the lighter tone and the greens moving out here into the tail. You also have those ridges here running along the top of the tail. And what's really cool about this is you can kind of articulate the tail there a little bit. You can reposition it. It does have the wire type tail, or at least I hope it does, because I've been moving it around, and it does stay in place. It doesn't bend very well here, like I haven't been able to really do much with that, and when I try, it kind of starts to remove the tail from the body, but you can at least articulate the, outer edge of the tail a little bit, just to add a little extra life for the Deinosuchus. And again, the detailing here throughout the course of the underside all looks great. It has that kind of soft look to it like you would expect to find on the underbelly of like a crocodile or an alligator. We also have a cloaca included just for that extra bit of realism. And again, you can see that the Deinosuchus is absolutely well fed, definitely has some girth in the stomach region. And if we take a look at the opposing side, you can see there is a slight difference when it comes to the positioning, as we have it turning slightly to its right, ever so slightly. But for the most part, it's all going to look fairly similar over here. There's no real big difference or anything on this side when it comes to the positioning of the body. You can even see the legs are primarily in the same position, or at least a very similar position compared to what we saw on the initial side. But moving through again, it doesn't hurt to take a look at this side because it is just so beautiful. This particular variant, the Swamp variant, is easily one of, if not the most impressive reborn models I've ever seen. And then we have the estuary version here, and this one obviously sports a much darker tone of like a grayish tone for the upper part of the body. You don't see quite as much variation of color on this one as you see on the Swamp variant, but they have still given it some slight variation of color. It just doesn't really stand out as much as you would see on the lighter tones of the Swamp variant. But like even here in the lower jaw, I'm picking up on some very slight transitions of different tones of color that is just really subtle as far as the application goes. The sculpt of this is exactly the same as the one we had just taken a look at as the Swamp variant, so we don't need to go over the sculpt itself. If we open the mouth, again, we've got that nice articulated jaw. The coloration is a bit different here for the inside of the mouth compared to the Swamp variant. Not too far off, but you can definitely see there is a little bit of color difference between the two different versions of the Deinosuchus. And again, the teeth look the same, though there's no real color difference in the teeth. Yet again, same similar situation as the Swamp variant, where I think maybe a brownish wash or something could have amped up the realism of the teeth, but it still looks pretty darn good. And rather than the gold eye, for this one we have, even though my camera really does not want to focus on it, we've got ourselves a nice green eye with a slit-like pupil, and that as well has a nice gloss coat. But just like with the Swamp variant, the entire thing has a bit of a satin finish, so it shines very realistically, very nicely. You can see as we move down, again, super smooth transition moving from the upper side to the underside of our Deinosuchus, and again, the coloration is incredibly realistically well done, and that wash just ties it all together. And just moving through, you can just see color variation even here on the underside as far as slightly different shades and tones of color used, just giving it a super realistic lifelike look. And as you continue to move along, you primarily see like the grayish tones throughout the course of the body of the Deinosuchus. Definitely has that same dark wash like we saw on the Swamp variant. But here in the stomach, you can kind of see it lighten up to a slight yellowish brown, but you can see the darker coloration stripes down here along the side of the Deinosuchus. You can also see the nails are the same material again that we had seen on the teeth, exactly the same color and everything as what we had just seen on the swamp variant. And then as you continue to move back, yet again you can see how the tail just like blends together so nicely when it comes to being applied. The only area that you can really take notice to it is the fact that the tail sticks down slightly compared to the rest of the body, but it's just really slightly. Other than that, I think it blends together flawlessly. But as you move out, you can see again more of the yellowish tones, even like straggler yellow spots up here running along the top of the tail, and you see more of that yellow here down here, as well as the darker gray, again striping down as you move out the length of the tail. It just looks super nicely done. Again, really realistic, really lifelike, very smooth application of the paint, very smooth transitions, and of course the entire thing again is tied together very nicely with that dark wash. And you can see again how we have a mixture of like the yellowish tones as well as kind of like an alternate tone of an off-white bordering on a yellowish tone here running along the underside for our Deinosuchus. Just insanely realistic paintwork on this, and that shine looks so nice on it as far as that satin finish, giving it that genuine wet look. And again, as you move through, you can get a good idea of what the entire thing looks like. So honestly, I think this one's actually, there's a nice variation of brown here running along the jawline in the front. But honestly, I think this one is going to be a really hard one for many people to choose. It's a toss-up between which one is the more appealing version, because both look incredibly realistic, incredibly lifelike, and they both genuinely look like living, breathing animals right here before me. Again, easily two of the best Reborn releases ever. And then when it comes to the Appalachiosaurus, first of all, this is the version that comes with the estuary variant, and you can see again that the sculpt is really beautiful. I would actually love to see a living version of this dinosaur, but you can see that we have nice variation of color and everything on this. Like, there is no laziness in this release at all. The eye is closed for our poor, unfortunately drowned dinosaur. You can see again that the tongue is kind of hanging over because it's being held like this, so you can see the entire body sort of limp in that direction. But they painted the inside of the mouth in a really nice realistic way where we have like a nice reddish wash that's been applied to a pinkish tone, and you can see kind of like, just in general, almost like a bloody sort of an appearance in there. Again, the tongue hanging over is a really nice touch. You've got the teeth that look just as realistic and lifelike as the teeth did on the inside of the mouth of the Deinosuchus, and the paintwork as well is honestly expertly applied here on this version. You can see again we also include that nice dark wash, really highlighting the scale detail, especially there on the lower jaw. And as you move back, you transition very smoothly to this nice variation of a brown, and then you have the darker tone running down along the back. You have a nice slice here. Actually, not even a slice. Those are definitely tooth marks right there in the neck region of the unfortunate dinosaur. You can see again that the blood and guts looks really cool in there. Again, variations of color with the pinks and the reddish wash. We do have a seam where the arm connects here, but again, this is just kind of like an extra, so I don't think that's a big deal. Nice transitioning to the coloration. They're kind of like a light gray for the fingers, though, moving out. And then you again have this area where we can see some more blood and guts, including the spinal column up there, kind of protruding through the back of the poor thing. It is absolutely massacred. You can even see again some of it is just like hanging over here over the side, and yet again a nice huge chunk taken out of the throat as well of this poor dinosaur, and it looks so realistic, insanely realistic. So that is an awesome extra. It doesn't get any better than that. But we also have the swamp variant, which again is very similar, but you can also see a little bit of difference when it comes to the coloration. I love that they've applied that kind of like lighter tone in between the scales of the face of this one. Pretty similar actually to Kiss of the Tyrannosaur release, but again, really nice realistic paintwork. Same deal with the tongue hanging over. Similar style of paintwork for the inside of the mouth, but slightly, actually a little bit more impressive when it comes to the reddish wash, but it looks like maybe a slight different tone of pink for the inside of the mouth. We also have a red kind of running up and over the top here of that little crest of the dinosaur. And again, an alternate tone of color moving down into the body rather than that brown. We have kind of like a reddish brown, which you could probably see a little better. Yeah, definitely a little bit better over here. And again, a nice grayish neck. You can also see that, light kind of khaki wash creeping through all of the creases in the skin and the scales. And the same similar style of color for the, blood and guts of our poor Appalachiosaurus. You can also see the hand darkens to a black, whereas on the other one it darkened to a gray. It's actually flexible. Look at that. Like really, really flexible. I didn't expect that. I'm actually noticing oh, wow. So apparently that moves. I did not know that. On the other one, you can see you can actually articulate the arm. I wonder if that pops off. Absolutely pops right out. So that was a little concerning at first when I had seen, now I can't get it back in. There we go. When I had seen that moving a little bit right there, I thought maybe it was just damaged or something, but actually the arm pops off and you can articulate the arm of the dinosaur, which is actually pretty darn cool. And again, you can see the blood and guts over here. The areas that have been ripped open all sport that nice glossy look to it, so it has that, bloody look overall. So everything about this set screams realism, but it also screams museum quality, because these are easily two of the best Rebor releases of all time. And of course, actually, if we just take one out of here, we'll take the swamp variant out for a moment. And if we take our deceased dinosaur here, you just want to put it in the mouth of your Deinosuchus. Get it in a nice spot there where he's kind of holding it in the mouth. And now you can see that he's got some prey. I probably could have found a better way to do that. Maybe if we went this way. Oh yeah, absolutely fits better this way. So you can now again see that the Deinosuchus has its prey there in its mouth, and I don't know what happened to the rest of the poor Appalachiosaurus, but I would imagine it was not a good scene when it did occur. As far as the size goes, again, these are huge. For a length, you are looking at a little over 17¼ inches, approaching 17½, or right around 44 centimeters. So very long. Height-wise, you're really not going to have much. It's a pretty low-lying animal, about 2¼ inches, or just shy of 6 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovisaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Deinosuchus from Rebor. And look at how huge this thing is. You can see it is just massive compared to every figure that we have included in this comparison. But for another comparison, we have the King Trident Triceratops, although this is actually the Horn of Doom version. But you can see again that we have the Triceratops next to the Deinosuchus, and I was pretty much raving about how large those Triceratops were when I had reviewed those, and you can see how impressively sized this Deinosuchus is next to the Triceratops. Again, really impressive how big the models from Rebor have been lately, and honestly, I absolutely love it. It just makes the price tag so much better, again, when you pay around like $60 or something along those lines. I forget exactly what it was on Big Bad Toy Store, and you get a model of this size, of this quality when it comes to the paint and everything. It is a steal, honestly. Really great pricing for something so impressively large. Now, unfortunately, I really don't have much in the way of Deinosuchus figures. I have a Safari LTD version and a Recurve version, and I can't find either of them. I have no idea where they are. Probably buried in one of these shelves, but you would think something like that would stand out. Can't seem to locate them, but I did bring in the Mojo Fun Alligator and Crocodile, if those are figures that you happen to have. It's tough to kind of bring in comparisons of similar species to this when we really don't get figures very often of this kind of stuff. Makes it a bit harder to have good comparisons. We also have the Mojo Fun Sarcosuchus here next to the Deinosuchus, just in case you happen to have that figure. There was also a really cool G.I. Joe set recently that had shown up at Walmart that included a really sweet crocodile figure with some nice articulation to it. This is that figure, so if you happen to have purchased that set, then you'll have that figure here to at least compare with the Deinosuchus again from Rebor, and you can yet again see it is massive next to it. And I do apologize for, again, not having the best comparisons this time around. Like, I really wanted to have some better ones, but I can't even find my Mattel Sarcosuchus because I just have so many Mattel figures shoveled into this shelf over here because there's been so much that's been released over the last few months, and I have not had time at all to kind of rearrange stuff and straighten it up to make it easier to find stuff. Just have not. I've been so busy, it's crazy. So hopefully some of these figures that I'll just bring in randoms will be decent comparisons. But here you again have a few randoms I've been using lately with the Schleich Diabloceratops, the Dimetrodon from Collect Day, as well as the Eutyrannus from Safari LTD for another comparison. We also have a Mattel Dilophosaurus and Mattel Velociraptor here next to the Deinosuchus, yet again to show you that it's very impressive in the size department. And again, because they seem to enjoy standing on the back of these Deinosuchus, there is Bumpy the Ankylosaurus, that kind of Roarivore style version of the Ankylosaurus from Mattel. So you can see what a standard size Roar Attack Roarivore style figure is size-wise next to this Deinosuchus. It's crazy impressive. And then when it comes to a 1/35th scale comparison, these Deinosuchus are slated to be 1/35th scale. There is the Beasts of the Mesozoic Tyrannosaurus series 1/35th scale T-Rex next to the Deinosuchus to help again further show you the impressive size. And one final comparison, and again super random, we have two different captives. We have the supersized Giganotosaurus and a standard sized captive's Therizinosaurus there in the face area of the Deinosuchus, just to again show you it's huge, and hopefully you will have something that I brought in for a comparison. Again, I apologize for not having any better comparisons prepared, but these showed up kind of unexpected today, so I was not ready for the review exactly, but hopefully one of these figures here will at least be something of a good comparison for you. So these brand new Rebor Deinosuchus figures are both insane. Like, again, I've stated it numerous times throughout this review. These are easily two of the best Rebor releases. In fact, I might say that they are the best in my personal opinion. Not everyone's going to have that opinion, of course, but in my opinion, I think they're the best, or at least I should say my favorite release from Rebor so far. Both versions are incredible when it comes to the sculpt and detail, taking highly detailed to honestly new heights for Rebor. Like, these are as lifelike and realistic when it comes to the sculpt as it's ever been for a Rebor release. It includes every single ounce of detail that you would see on this creature, and honestly on like a modern day crocodile. Like, it absolutely is exactly the amount of detail you would expect to see. So perfect as far as the fine detail goes and the amount of detail they've included. It really is just phenomenal. On top of that, they have a great paint job for both versions. My personal favorite, of course, is the swamp variant. I just love the greenish tones. I'm always a huge fan of greens on dinosaurs, as well as, again, crocodilians and things of that nature. I just think it looks so good on pretty much everything, and the greens they've chosen for this look so natural and so smooth and just so visually appealing. Like, they really are nice to look at. It's pretty much a treat for the eyes, and they did a great job of applying the paint in a really realistic way, tying it all together with the nice dark wash, adding in tons of variation of color on top of everything, and again, just giving it probably the best and my new favorite paint job on a Rebor figure ever. The estuary version as well honestly looks almost as impressive as the swamp variant does. When it comes to realism, it's right there, right in the same level of quality. Like, it has a gorgeous paint job with lots of variation of color to it as well. Again, that nice dark wash tying it all together, such smooth transitions, and just in general an incredibly realistic visual for the figure. Like, it really genuinely looks like a living, breathing animal right here before me. Both of them do. And also, again, is a really naturalistic coloration for an animal like this. It really does look like it could be the color. So they've given me two different color variants that I'm almost positive could be the color of this animal, and two different color variants that just look great overall. On top of that, you have the Appalachiosaurus, which looks super, super cool, and I'm really impressed with how much effort they put into the actual paint job and realism of that piece as well. Like, that's just a really cool extra for your model, but they went above and beyond to make it look as lifelike and as realistic as possible, adding in lots of variation of color, washes, all sorts of gloss coats and the injuries and everything, just again making it go from being a really cool extra to a primary piece of the diorama. And both have really nice naturalistic paint schemes, and I like that they don't differ too far from each other. They look similar, but slightly different, so it's almost like they could potentially be, a member of the same group that unfortunately drowned together. So as a whole, again, I can't even begin to express how impressive these are in person, whether it's the sculpt, the amazing paint, or the insanely impressive size, along with the nice articulation in the jaw and some slight articulation in the tail. These are absolute must-haves. So if you are interested in these, check the link that I will include in the description to Big Bad Toy Store, where I purchased mine. Go grab yourself one or both of these beautiful Deinosuchus, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.